Hey guys, and welcome on into the next NHL season preview show. And today we are talking about the Philadelphia Flyers, looking at their 2023-2024 season preview. And to do that with me is Franco, the banker. Make sure to follow him. His Twitter link is in the description below. So make sure to go give him a follow. Post free picks a lot. I see you posting free picks all the time and different sports as well. I see soccer as well, which is nice because I dabble in MLS as well.
Nice.
So it's nice to see some other soccer capper on there. But yeah, make sure to go give him a follow there. In his Twitter link is in the description below. We're going to
Excellent.
jump right into it here and start with the very first segment here for the Philadelphia Flyers. And they had a decent off season here where they made some moves, a few trades, definitely some additions and subtractions here. Starting with the additions, I was telling Franco off air that Cal Peterson. I don't really get that trade. I guess maybe it's for depth, or maybe they're looking to tank and fall down the standings. But he doesn't really seem like a guy that I would be relying on. But obviously, the Flyers are probably not looking at making a Stanley Cup run this year. They're probably realistically looking at the future. But as we've seen already, they have some good prospects coming. So Philly will be looking to fill up the draft cupboard of the prospect cupboard a bit more here. Mark Stahl, way past his prime. Victor Meaty, he's a seventh defenseman in my opinion. Garnet Hathaway will bring some depth. He's definitely a guy that Tortorella will like. And then the rest of the guys are kind of depth guys. Ryan Poling, hat trick in his first game, but he's never really got in there. He's always had potential, but he's never really got there. Sean Walker, defensive addition there, so I like that one as well. Looking at who left, Tony DeAngelo got bought out. I'm shocked that he and Torts even. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not shocked that he's gone because he's definitely not a Torts type player. So that makes sense there. Other depth guys, Provorov gone in a trade, but we'll see what your thoughts are. But I don't want to say it's an addition by subtraction, but I think it's a good change of scenery for him, and a good move overall by the Flyers. JVR, he's getting up there in age. He's gone now as well. Justin Braun retired. So really, not a whole lot. Philadelphia didn't make any big, huge additions, but with the spot that they're in, they don't really have to at this point. They're looking to the future. What do you think here? Additions and subtractions here for the Flyers. Okay.
Yeah, I think kind of like what you said. It's almost an addition by subtraction here in general, right? So Provorov was kind of a guy that came in his first few seasons in Philly, and he looked the part. He looked like he was going to be that guy, that top pair defenseman that was going to be the anchor for this franchise going forward. Um, but then once he started becoming the guy, and he wasn't as sheltered with the veterans around him that were better and helping him, he kind of just started to lose it. And I think a lot of the fans here started to turn on him, and there's some negative press and stuff as well surrounding him. So it was one of those things, kind of like Tony DeAngelo, and Kevin Hayes for that matter, where all three of those guys almost needed to be out no matter what at this point. So um, getting rid of them and clearing that space out is going to help this team in the long run. And I think the main thing with this team is that they're finally accepting the fact that they're just not good enough. Um, for the past, I guess, 2 years, 3 years at this point, they've been kind of like that fringe team that like sneaks in the playoffs one year and doesn't even have a chance when they're there, and then the next year they're just not very good at all. So I think it's finally time to just kind of move on from these older guys like JVR and Hayes, and kind of bring in the new and move these contracts out and clear that space. So I think the trade for Provorov was to get rid of that cap, right? He was like almost 7 million a year guy. I think that's part of why they took on the Peterson contract. He's making 5 mil a year, which is pretty insane. Um, Hellsgrams looks like he could be maybe a decent prospect. We'll see, I guess, in a year or two. Sean Walker doesn't really do much for me, but I mean, I think this is a team that should be losing this year. I'm not expecting high things from this team in general. So adding guys that are fringe starters on most teams is probably a good thing for this team. Maybe towards the end of the year, will allow some of their younger prospects to move up and get some playing time as well.
Yeah, for sure. And also the draft picks they got in the trade were important as well. That's what they're looking for. And the Flyers, you're totally right. They were that team for a long time where they would make the playoffs the one year and they would just fall off the next year, and then they make the playoffs the next year and fall off the next year. But now they're going the rebuild route, so they're making the decision not to try to make the playoffs for a few years, but it's going to stock the cupboard up, hopefully, to make them a long-term playoff team and cup contender in the future. We'll go to the second segment, which is looking at upcoming free agents. Of course, some teams have a big long list where they have a bunch of players to re-sign. Philly doesn't, and when you look at it here, the most important players for Philadelphia to re-sign are RFAs. They're probably not going anywhere unless there's some kind of trade. Carter Hart there's been trade rumors there about him. He's an RFA. Owen Tippett, I think of the guys on this list, I think Owen Tippett is the most important player for the Flyers to re-sign, and then Carter Hart as well. That's why I have their two pictures down here. I think they're the two most important players on this list that the Flyers should re-sign. I don't expect the Flyers to go out and re-sign Mark Stahl because he is ancient. So he's just kind of a depth guy there for this year, but definitely won't be re-signing him. I would be shocked if they re-signed him. But Nick Seeler, former Chuck Fletcher guy, he was in Minnesota as well. Um, going to be a depth defenseman, if that. He's good at fighting, but that's basically it. So um, Ziger Zamula is RFA as well, so the Flyers will re-sign him. So not a whole lot of important things here to do in the offseason. Basically, Carter Hart and Owen Tippett are the most important things, I think, important players, I think, for Philadelphia to resign. Franco, do you agree with me? Who do you think here the Flyers should focus on re-signing this offseason?
Yeah, I think those two are the top for sure. I feel like you have to resign Tippett just for the fact that he was the piece for the Giroux trade. A lot of people were mad about that trade. Felt like they could have gotten more for Claude Giroux at the time. He's still a pretty damn good player in this league. So um, kind of disappointing so far from Tippett, but he's shown some flashes. So I think you have to get him back. The other one that you didn't mention was Wade Allison. He's kind of had some injury issues, but when he's healthy, he's kind of looked the part. He's a big dude, power forward type guy. I like his game. So if he can stay healthy for once, I mean, I guess that's the big thing, right? If he can't stay healthy ever, then maybe you do let him walk. But I wouldn't mind if they bring him back on a nice team friendly deal. Um, Hart's been rumored all over the place. I don't know what that means. They drafted two goalies. There's the Fedotov thing going on as well. He got ruled to come back to the Flyers, but Russia's not letting him come back. So I don't know what's going on with that exactly. But the Flyers goalie prospect pool looks relatively decent. So, and they just stocked up two more in the draft. I don't know if that's a sign of things to come that they are expecting to lose Hart in one way or another. Um, it's a big talking point here. Do you with the rebuild probably going to be taking at least 2 to 3 years? Do you re-sign a guy like Carter Hart? I would argue he's still young enough that I think you should. I know a lot of people say get rid of him, get whatever you can, and all that, and he hasn't been good enough and all that stuff. He's still really young, like really young. For it's surprising every time I look at his age, and I just think that there's still potential that this kid could be better than what he's shown. And goalies are just so weird. You just year to year, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, you've seen it in Minnesota with Gustafson. hasn't really put it together and was just a throw-in piece. And now it looks like you guys have a real goalie there. And I just don't want them to give up on this guy because he's had down years in front of this porous defense. So I would like them to resign him long term. I like some of the trade offers that I've seen, but I mean, those are probably unrealistic. The other thing, Mark Stahl being a UFA, hopefully he's the type of guy that they can trade at the deadline. Maybe he's relatively productive. He can help these young guys, maybe show them a thing or two, and then towards the deadline, they're able to get something back for him. That's what I hope out of a guy like him. So
Awesome. Yeah, Carter Hart being 25, he's kind of goalies. Most younger players, they hit their prime 23, 24, but goalies kind of usually hit it a bit late. So Carter Hart might be just about to hit his prime over the next couple of years. So I can see for a rebuilding team why you may not want to have a goalie that's hitting his prime because he's gonna cost you some wins. He's gonna cost you some points in the standings. Now, obviously, some teams look at tanking and some teams don't. Um, but if you could get some good draft picks and a prospect for Hart, I think the Flyers should consider it just because um, you can never, looking at Minnesota right now, you can never have too many prospects. You can never have too many draft picks. Just load up that prospect cupboard. Um, but if they decide to sign Hart long term and he plays well in the future, then you have your goalie locked up. So it's a win win, whatever they decide. And the RFA's like Wade Allison, like you mentioned, he won't cost much at all if they do re-sign him. So no big, huge long term deals. I think even Tippett wouldn't get really a long term deal. Carter Hart would be the only one I think that potentially could get a long term deal here by the Flyers. We'll go to the next segment, which is possible lineup, taking a look at what the lineup could look like for this upcoming season. Farabee, Frost, and Tippett as the top line. Lofton, Couturier, and Konechny on the second line. Um, Pretty good top six. Obviously, when you look at other teams in the league, they have stronger top six, but there's still going to be scoring from that top six, and there's going to be player prop opportunities. And potentially with the Flyers, you might get some pretty good prices on some player props for the Flyers. I'm sure Farabee and Konechny and Couturier will probably be a bit higher, but Morgan Frost and Tippett, Lofton, you might be able to get some good prices on player props. So keep an eye on them. That third line, Atkinson, Noah Cates, who I like a lot, Allison, Delorier, Poling, and Hathaway in that fourth line, a physical type line that Tortorella will love there on the fourth line. Poling, though, I don't know how much he fits on that line, but we'll see what happens there. Looking at the defensemen, it's a bit rough. Ristolainen is just not a good defenseman. He's never really been a good defenseman. That's all I can really say. Sanheim, I do like. Stahl, an older veteran. York, young, has potential. Sealer, Walker, there is Zamula as the seventh defenseman. And when you look at the goalies, I mentioned Kyle Peterson, who I'm not sure why the Flyers signed. And really, I think he should be the third goaltender or fourth goaltender. So, um, unless the Flyers are trying to tank, if they want to tank, then yes, have him here as one of your top two goaltenders. But if you are looking to actually look at what you have with the other guys, Felix Sandstrom, we kind of know what we're going to get from him, but he's still um, has potential as well. But Samuel Urson looked really good in the games he played for the Flyers last year. I would give him a shot at the backup if he plays well in training and spring training or preseason here. I would give him um, a shot at the backup position. That would just be my thoughts. But overall, the lineup is just it's not comparable to other teams in the NHL. But when you're rebuilding, that's to be expected. So overall, a good lineup. There'll be money to maybe made in some player props. Do you think we see any other trades? Like, could we possibly see Couturier or Konechny or one of those guys get traded? And what do you think about this overall lineup?
First for the trade, I guess. I think Konechny makes a lot of sense. I've been kind of tooting it for the last like year or so that I thought they should trade him last year when he was on that run where he was just on fire, scoring left and right. His value couldn't have been higher. You get rid of him then. I don't know why last year they refused to sell earlier in the season as if they had a chance to compete, and it kind of eventually put them out of the Bedard sweepstakes because they just kept winning games and pushing games to overtime and stuff like that, which was just frustrating as a fan. Couturier is the big question, right? I guess him and Atkinson, really, when you look at these lines, both coming back from season-long injuries that have lingered, and um, there's been like a lot of mystery around both of their injuries. Really, is what it comes down to. I don't know if it's like issues with the Flyers medical staff or whatever it is, but it just seems like both of them, and even when we look at Ryan Ellis with his injury being out on short-term IR now, or long-term IR. But I don't know what's going on in Philly with these injuries where these guys just there's no info available. They're just gone. There was rumors that Atkinson was going to come back last year, and then they shut him down. And so I don't know what we get out of these guys. Are they really going to be there for this season, or is this going to be one of those things where in training camp they're or in preseason they tweak something, or early in the season they tweak something and they're right back on the shelf? I mean that significantly changes what these lines look like. So um, on paper, it doesn't look too bad. I agree. I mean, those top two lines look okay. If Couturier can return anywhere close to the form he was, I mean, he was a shutdown, great, two-way center a couple of years ago. I mean, we kind of forget he was trending in that path of like a Kopitar type of guy. So um, it's really a shame to see where he is now, where it's almost like you don't even rate the guy. So if he's back to that, I mean, this team might be kind of surprising, to be honest with you. That third line looks pretty good. Um, fourth line, I don't really know what to expect from that. I like the Hathaway edition. I have never liked the Delorier's edition. And Paling is just kind of like a weird fit for a fourth line. Like he seems more like a third line type of guy to me. So I don't really know about that one. I know he's still young, so maybe he moves up and down. The one thing about Ursan, I do like what I've seen from him. Maybe they're just trying to give him time in the AHL. So we'll see what happens there. Blue line just looks dreadful. I'll never understand the Ristolainen trade. I'll never understand the Ristolainen extension. I'll never understand the Sanheim extension. So here we are with both of those guys signed through 2027 for a combined $11.3 million. And that's just disgusting to me. I don't know what to say about that. Maybe they become your second pair in the future, a couple of years from now. But I mean, they're not going anywhere for this team. And that's one of those things that kind of hurts a little bit. I do like Cam York. I like what I've seen from him. I think he really could be a great puck moving defenseman in this league. I just want them to give him more time. He's only 22. Last year they signed all those guys. They brought in Braun, they brought in Tony DeAngelo, and that forced him back to the AHL and didn't give him time. And I understand Torts wants to, once these guys are experienced and going to do this and that, and that isn't conducive for a young guy, kind of learning his way in the league. So we'll see if they let him stay up in that top two pair. And maybe that's why they brought in Stahl to kind of shelter him a little bit. But I do like his potential. So as bad as this looks, I think in a couple of years at least, Stahl will be gone for sure. Walker will be gone, so will Sealer. So maybe you bump down that first pairing to your second pairing. It's not as bad, but it's still pretty bad.
Most likely, the Flyers will be looking at with their draft picks they have over the next few years. I'm sure defenseman is going to be a priority for them here
Yep.
in the upcoming years. We'll go to the final segment there, which is future bets. And I know on a lot of other shows, there's a lot more player props I usually have listed. And then there's usually the who will have more points. But there's just not many bets out there for the Flyers, especially player prop futures. Um, there's just nothing there. So, looking at what is there, obviously, President's Trophy, win division, win conference, win Stanley Cup. Um, those are just donations, but I'm sure you'll agree with me. Just those are just there to look nice and have high odds, but not now, not now for the Flyers. Looking at the point total at 76 and a half, minus 115 each way, 75 last year, 61 the year before that. And I'm not sure when it comes to a point total for the Flyers. A lot of people thought the Flyers were going to be really, really bad last year, and Tortorella just won't accept that. He insists that his players play. Even like there's no tanking with Tortorella, so players have to play or they just don't play. So um, he gets the most from his players as well. So I don't want to go with the under. If the Flyers stay healthy, that they could potentially surprise some people and go over the point total. So nothing there for me. Make the playoffs, it's a no, but no is minus 1,000. So there's absolutely nothing I can do with that. So the two player props that are there are Carter Hart props. I'm not going to choose Hart to win the Vezina because unfortunately the defense in front of him is, as we've discussed, really bad, and I just don't see any possibility in where how he could win the Vezina if he's staying in Philadelphia. If he gets traded to a different team, um, maybe home to Calgary, but Calgary doesn't really have a top-notch defense. If he gets traded to a team with a top-notch defense, maybe um, possibly, but not a bet for me with the Vezina. And then looking at the player or Carter Hart wins, he had 22 wins last year, and his prop is at 22 and a half. He played 55 games, but he went 22, 23, and 10. So 10 overtime losses. I don't know. I'm not going to take the over. I'm not going to take the under. I'm sorry, everybody that was really excited for some future bets for the Flyers. I just I can't, and I've explained why. I can't on each bet. There's just nothing I can do for the Flyers here. Franco, do you agree with me? Is there anything you're looking at future bets for the Flyers here?
I would probably say no. Kind of like what you said. The points total is weird. It seems high. Um, and if this team is able to sell some pieces towards the season, or if they do get a key injury on to Coots or Atkinson, or Konechny's gone or something like that, then I think the 76 and a half under that number is going to look pretty good. But yeah, it if this team stays healthy, like I think they could actually kind of go over that number, like with the way this team's currently built. Frustratingly enough, as a Flyers fan that wants a top pick, but I mean, I wouldn't go either way. As far as the Hart wins total, I mean, that looks pretty good on paper. He's never gone over that 22 and a half except for 1 year in 2019, 2020. But every other year he's been under that number. Last year was the closest he came. So, I mean, I would lean the under there, but if he gets traded and ends up on a team like I mean, I've seen Edmonton has been one of the big rumored teams for him. So, I mean, if he goes to Edmonton at the midway point of the season, that is going to be you're going to be sweating. So, I don't really want a part of that. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, unfortunately, there's not really much value to be had here. Obviously, they're not winning any kind of division or going to the playoffs or anything like that. So I'm not trying to parlay any kind of crazy minus 1,000s or anything like that. So yeah, I'd probably stay away. I guess we'll have to see just how this team works out. And I mean, just go game by game, probably fade them early in the season and kind of see how they're playing. See how Carter Hart looks, see how the defense looks. They could be just play it by ear type of thing. See if they're an over team, see if they're an under team, and kind of go from there. And like you said, you're probably going to get some value on some props on these guys that they're not the big names on those top two lines because I do think they'll be able to score.
Yeah. And I agree with the Carter Hart. I can't see Edmonton going for him because Edmonton just seems to like the goaltenders they have year after year.
I don't know why.
They have such a great team, and they're just that goalie away from from winning the cup, but they just decide that they're fine with their goaltending, and they have McDavid and Draisaitl, so they're fine. And then year after year, we see what happens with them. So it's just like, I don't know. They just don't really seem interested in improving their goaltending when they desperately should.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately.
we'll get to that on the Edmonton show. Thank you for coming. As I said, give Franco a follow. His Twitter link is in the description below. And next up to talk the Philadelphia Flyers is Ryan. Make sure to give him a follow. His Twitter link is in the description below. Give him a follow on Twitter. We're going to jump right into it here, talking the Philadelphia Flyers and starting with additions and subtractions here. But my computer's being a little bit slow. I apologize. Kind of a big list here for Philly on the offseason. Some guys going out, some guys going in, some trades. Of course, I don't have draft picks on here, but Philly made some trades to get some draft picks as well. What do you think overall about the additions and subtractions this offseason?
So when you look at this team, there's really not, a lot to get excited about. They have a lot of young guys. They're trying to build from within a little bit. The Flyers always tend to do that. They do it with management. They do it with players. Um, whenever every time they bring somebody in, it usually doesn't end well. We'll go back to like Brizgalov, how that looked. That didn't end well. So the guys they brought in, they just look like they're like veteran leadership. They kind of want to just mentor these young guys, try to get them going a little bit. But there's also you want to see if they can play under John Tortorella. Um, guys like Kevin Hayes, they did not get along at all, so they kind of just sold him for nothing just to get rid of him. I never really liked Tortorella, but I want to see what he can do with these young guys. Maybe he can get them going. They're like Morgan Frost, so young, guys like that. They're like, they're good players. Hathaway's a good addition. He's a good tough guy. He'll fit in with like Delorier. They'll protect those young players, obviously. Sean Walker's kind of like he's a little bit of veteran presence. Cal Peterson's kind of just there just to be there. I guess I feel like they just kind of took him from LA. Mark Stahl's a good veteran piece. If you're looking for points from him, you got to look somewhere else. He's going to play a good defensive game, obviously. But like I said, he's going to probably, teach those young guys how to play better. And Reeves, like they were looking to get rid of it, the entire year. Never could get rid of the contract. There was a reason they didn't get Gaudreau last year. They couldn't move his contract in the offseason. And, if you read all the articles and, the analysts say Gaudreau wanted to come here. He's from the South Philly area in New Jersey and everything. But he ended up in Columbus. He had like a little down year from last year, but he was good. Tony DeAngelo, he's just a locker room. He's kind of a locker room cancer anywhere he goes. He's got a lot of skill. You can't say DeAngelo isn't a good player. Just the personality, I guess it just didn't fit in. The Provorov thing, I didn't understand. I knew he was never like a 1. Maybe he could be a 2, but he needed a guy to play along with. He was never going to be that producer. He needed someone to be there with him to be a producer. So, he obviously didn't fit into their plans. So, they sent him all over to Columbus, which is fine. Like I said, Kevin Hayes, it's unfortunate. It's nice. He's the nicest guy in the world, but he just didn't fit here, like I said. So Kiefer Bellows, I mean, what was he much last year? Not too much. He was just kind of here. Brennan Lemieux, he was kind of here too for a little bit. Another tough guy. He hasn't really fit in anywhere he played. I do miss Justin Braun. I think he was kind of like he was a good player to have back there in like a 5 to 6 role on a defenseman, like, pairing. But it is what it is. Flyers kind of just got to move on and, go to the next thing. So we'll see how they do this year.
Yeah, definitely probably looking to get younger and looking to the future. So
Yeah, they need it.
Getting draft picks was important in
Obviously,
that
yeah,
project.
it's huge.
But going to the second segment here, which is upcoming free agents. Some teams have a big list. Some teams don't. When it comes to the Flyers here, I have the pictures of the two players I think are the most important for the Flyers to re-sign, being Owen Tippett and the forwards, and then Carter Hart in goaltender. Of course, there's rumors about Carter Hart being traded. There always seems to be those rumors, so
Mhm.
that's a
Yeah.
possibility as well. What do you think about the upcoming free agents? Who should the Flyers let go? Who should they re-sign next offseason?
So right off the bat, you got to look at Owen Tippett. He was a great pickup from Florida. They were trying to make the cup that year, so you send Giroux over there, you get Tippett back. What's he? 23, 24 years old. He's super young. He produced points last year. He can score. He showed it. He played really well under John Tortorella, which is a good sign because, like I said, not a lot of guys do. They don't like him. They just don't get along with him in his old school coaching mentality, which I don't blame. I think coaches nowadays kind of, cater to the younger players and they aren't as hard on them. Torts hasn't done that. He's never changed, which is a reason why he's probably been fired so many times. But Tippett's a big one. He definitely showed me something last year that he's gotta be on this team. You can't give up Claude Giroux, who I don't care what anyone said. People in the Philly area, like the Philly media, will always rag on Giroux for never winning a cup. He wasn't a good captain. Well, he produced like 90 points almost every year. He was a really good player. So keeping Tippett's big. Um, Wade Allison's another one I like. He's really underrated. I didn't know much about him when they brought him up, but when he plays, he's a good third line forward. He's going to put points on the board for that team, and he's always going to work hard, which is good. That's what you want out of a third line. Um, Next, you want to go defenseman. Honestly, I think to be funny, I think the biggest one on that list is Nick Seeler. He showed me he can play. Yeah, I like Nick Seeler a lot. I don't want to give him a big contract, obviously. He I don't think he's deserving of that, but he is a good player to have. You can healthy scratch him every night if you need to, and he's a good player when he's in the lineup. I haven't really seen too many bad things from him. Obviously, like I said, he's not a top four defenseman, but he is a good defenseman. As for goalies, I don't know what's going to happen with Carter Hart. There's always speculation with him, at least the last 2 years, saying that he doesn't want to be on a rebuilding team. But if you look at it, it's like Carter, you're not that old. Like you can be on this team and you can, build up with this team and be a good goalie. The thing is, people don't think Carter Hart's good, but you got to look at what's been in front of him the last 2, 3, 4 years that he's been on the team. It really hasn't been much. Um, I will say he had one pretty down year. I think that was his second year where he surprisingly he got rid of his sports psychologist. And I guess for goaltenders that makes a big difference having a good psychologist. Goalies are a different breed. They're always in their own head. It really affects their game when they're not in the right mind. And for him to get rid of that sports psychologist really hurt his game. And last season, I think he got him back, and he played a lot better. Obviously the ending of the season wasn't what he wanted. He didn't look great, but when he was good, he was really good. But that team last year was in shambles. They were all over the place. So I couldn't really blame him. And if he doesn't want to be on the team, I mean, you need to trade him before the season's over, or you need to just let him walk. But I don't think anyone should let him walk. I mean, he's a great goaltender. You can't, if you're going to give him up, you got to get something back for him. Sandstrom was like up and down. I know the team was the same in front of him as it was in Carter Hart, but he wasn't great. And they've had him for a while. He was supposed to be a really good prospect. I think he was drafted before Carter Hart, and he was going to be the next goalie to come up. But I don't know if it was just because it was his first year last year, playing at the NHL level. He just didn't look good. Maybe you give him on a 1 or 2 year deal and see if he can prove himself, to be able to play in the NHL. But I'm not really sold on Felix Sandstrom. So they're going to have to, take one of those draft picks that they get for those players and, look for somewhere else for a goalie, or, hopefully, Fedotov will come over, something like that. What's going on with him. Nobody knows, but they might have to start looking somewhere else for a goalie. I'm just not sure what's going to happen there.
Yeah. With Carter Hart, most likely if you did trade him, you get a goaltender in return there. And
Yeah.
then going on to the next segment, possible lineup. The Flyers do have Samuel Urson, and they didn't really see a whole lot from him last year, but when he did play, he played really well. So
You know
I
what?
would
He
give
did.
him,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I would give him a look if I
Yeah.
was the Flyers. But Carter Hart, you said he is still young. He's 26, so goaltenders, their prime is a little bit later than forwards and defensemen,
Yeah.
whose prime is like 22, 23. Goaltenders are right around 26, 27, 20 is their prime. So I can understand Carter Hart not really wanting to go through a rebuild
Yeah.
because if you look at this possible lineup, Farabee, Couturier, well, maybe not so much Farabee, but Couturier, Konechny, they could be trade bait. They could
Yeah.
end up getting Atkinson. If the Flyers really want to tear it down and continue this rebuild, they have pieces they can trade away for more draft picks. So
Yeah.
we'll see what they do overall. What do you think about this lineup, this possible lineup?
So it's young, which is fine. Today's NHL youth is like becoming the thing. It's like you don't have a ton of veterans on any teams that are like the teams to beat. Like the Colorados. McKinnon, he's not old, right? Kucherov's up there. Stamkos is up there, but are they really, the team to beat anymore anyway? Tampa Bay, Stamkos is going somewhere else apparently. Youth, they're letting young guys play nowadays. It's not like it was 15, 20 years ago where you let those guys develop in the AHL for long. They're letting these guys play, which is honestly a good thing. You see what you get early. You don't develop someone in the AHL for 4, 5, 6 years, bring them up, and then, they can't play at the level anyway, so it doesn't matter. So it's good. I think my sleeper on this team is Forrester. He was dynamite last year when he played. The kid's got a wicked shot. He's a good player. He was definitely going to be a steal. He's going to be someone that the Flyers are going to keep for a long time. Atkinson, he hasn't played. He's been here and he's been hurt. I don't know why he's still here, to be honest. I'm waiting for Daniel Briere to get rid of him for nothing, to be honest with you. I just don't see him lasting on this team. I don't know if he likes Tortorella either. I know they were together for a long time. But he's just someone I don't like. Lawton's a prime example of someone who was developed in the AHL for a while, but he could come up and play. He's not going to be your top guy. Obviously, he was always on the third line. So him being on the second line kind of shows me that this team's a little all over the place. They're trying to get something to work. Frost is someone that was another high touted prospect, just like Farabee. So you're hoping that this year these guys develop. I know Frost just got a deal, but I kind of want to see more out of him to prove that deal. You know what I'm saying? It's just like he's a good player. He's done some good things, but he hasn't shown me that he's like a number one center. So, and another big one is Couturier. What's he going to do when he comes back? He's been hurt for the last 2 years. He's had a back problem. That's not good for players playing ice hockey. He had like all kind of slip discs and things like that. And it's just, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. If you can get the good Couturier, he made Team Canada a couple times for the Olympics. He's a great player. He's great two-way. He had a really good playoff series against the Penguins when he first came up. He had his hat trick in that one game, and he shut down Evgeny Malkin. So obviously the guy can play hockey. He can play two ways. That's what you want. You need that. So you got to hope Couturier comes back. As for their defense, you can't really make too much of it. It is what it is. Sanheim's the best player on that defense, obviously. He got a big deal, so he's got to prove it. He needs to take like this year to prove that because he's going to be on the number one pairing. What's good is he's with Ristolainen. I know people give Ristolainen, a whole bunch of stuff for not being great and not living up to what he was in Buffalo. But he's a physical defenseman that plays good defense. So you just got to hope him and Sanheim together are good. The bottom four, it is what it is. York needs to be better. He was a high draft pick. He's young too, so he's got time. But I think this is a year where he kind of proves it, being at his second pair. Stahl's gonna be huge for him, being a veteran presence. Playing with him, he's gonna teach him how to play because I think they play similar. I think York has a little more offensive upside than Stahl ever had, but defensively, I think York can be as good, if not better, than Mark Stahl. The bottom two, Sealer and Walker, just good two fill-in guys. They don't make a lot of mistakes, so you just got to hope that that's what they do all season. For the goalies, like you said, it comes down to does Carter Hart want to be here? How's he going to play? Is he going to care? I mean, obviously, every hockey player is not usually going to tank. It's not like the NBA or the NFL when the player's not happy, they just don't try. So hopefully Carter plays good. If he plays really good, he's going to get what he wants and he's going to get traded because his value is going to go up and they're going to get something back for him and hopefully they'll just move on. But the lineup's okay. Maybe a playoff team, probably not. I don't really think so. If they sneak in, good for them. But probably like 80, 85 points this year. Nothing too special. Maybe, like I said, maybe they'll sneak in. But that Metro division's really good. So good luck to them, honestly.
Well, that's the perfect segue into the final segment
Yeah.
of the show, which is future bets.
Yeah.
Point total for the Flyers is 76.5. They had 75 last year,
Yeah.
61 the year before. So if you do see improvement, maybe you could look at the point total over. For me, the Flyers are in a really tough division, but when you
Yep.
have Tortorella as a coach, he's not going to let you just slack off and tank.
Yeah. No.
That's just not Tortorella. So
Mhm.
when you have a Tortorella coach, it's tough for me to go with the under in the point total. You were saying maybe of sneaking into the playoffs plus 650
Yeah, a lot
for
of
the
young guys
Flyers.
on that team. So we'll see if they can, a lot of young guys like to die out at the end of the season. That's just what they happen. They're not used to a long season, but they could do it. I mean, the Flyers have a tendency to getting people's hopes up around here, and they'll make the
Yeah,
playoffs. And it's every other year they do and don't.
yeah,
Well, we'll see. So
yeah. So what do you think about the future bets here? Anything catch your eye? I know there's not a lot. Basically, Hart wins, Hart Vesna, but does anything? Any thoughts on the future bets here?
so that point total last year was what 75.
Yeah.
And I think they ended with 74 points on the year because they lost an overtime game. I think the last game of the season to Columbus or something. It was something like that where I'm pretty sure they went under or they just went over by one.
Well, no. Their total points they had last year was 75.
Oh, you're talking about the
I
total
don't know what
points
their point
overall as
total
a team,
was.
not the win.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they could get over, honestly. This team, like I said, the Flyers have always had a tendency to getting people's hopes up. So they'll play good in the regular season. They'll make the playoffs the next year, not be good. So maybe this will be a year where those young guys come in and, you could place a small bet on them with their point total going over. Playoffs, half unit maybe. Nothing big. You don't want to go too big on that. I think Hart, if he plays enough games, he could get 24, 25 wins. Because I mean, like I said, if he wants to not be on the team and he wants to get traded, he's going to have to play a lot and he's going to have to play good and steal a lot of wins for the team. He could get 25 wins, I think. I think that could happen. Last year he had what 20 or under 25, but I
Yeah,
think
I
he could hit
don't believe he's ever hit 25 in his, or he's
no,
never
but I
hit
think
over
he could hit
23 in his
23
career.
wins if those guys play good in front of him, if these young guys play good in front of him. Like I said, it's different now because we're not kind of shuffling this team around bringing guys in from free agency like they were last year or the years before. They're finally bringing guys up and letting them play. So, let them guys get chemistry together. They could do it. The couple of these things could hit, but you don't want to go large on this stuff. Obviously, it's the Flyers. You can't really expect much. President's Trophy and down, no bet. None of those things. If you got a lot of money, you got a lot of money to spend on each unit. Go ahead. Why not? But I don't see it happening. So playoff small, half unit, point total, maybe a unit on the over, nothing big. And Hart wins. I think he could sneak in. It depends on how he starts, obviously, like I said, and if he wants to showcase what he's got.
Awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if Flyers hit the point total over or make playoffs, then Couturier would have to have a big year.
Yeah, he's
He'd
going to have to be
have to
big
have,
for this team.
yeah, for
But 2
sure.
years of no hockey is not good for somebody.
Yeah, it's tough to tell exactly what
Yeah.
you're going to get from him. But thank you for coming, Ryan. That is the Philadelphia Flyers show. As I said, make sure to give Ryan a follow. His Twitter link is in the description below. And we'll see you for the next team. Thanks for watching,
All right, Terry.
guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, so much for watching this NHL season preview show. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as we continue on breaking down all 32 NHL teams, which will lead to the regular season when the Getting Wild with Terry and Friends NHL betting show will return. Thank you, everyone, for watching. course, make sure to follow everyone in the description below that was on today's show to show them some support. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you on the next show.